Okay, everyone. So let's carry on. Okay, carry on with setting up our widgets, our floating widgets, right? So in the last class, we created the widget, didn't we? We got off to a good start with doing that. We created an icon that's done specifically for this blueprint. Now we we've added it. We've explained how the widget and how the billboard works. So that's as far as we got to. Okay. And when we push play, we showed you how it's constantly positioned there looking at the camera. Okay. So you might find you've got several widgets in your scene eventually. So you can imagine how it could slowly become quite complicated. So the idea here is that when we come up to the object, the closer we get to them, then the icon will appear, and especially when we mouse over the blueprint. So if we're talking about the controller, we need to enable something in our character, don't we? So let's open it up. So it's the character, okay, that who's going to be mousing over the blueprint. So let's do this together. Let's set it up how we need it to be. So we already know that we have to enable something in our character. We already have an idea of it. We're kind of used to working with things like line tracing and how that identifies the object. We've done some of these things similar before in the line tracing class. And that, if you remember, helped us to calculate the distance between the controller and the object so we could generate the autofocus. And we could also create functions for us to interact with the object as well. So all of those with line tracing helps us then, and they can also help us now. So we can use the same principles to know which object the character is pointing at. So we can use this function that we already have in the line tracing section. And we have two line tracings, the one for the interaction and the one by frames. So the logic is to use this one at all times. Okay, this one will only work when I press the mouse button and when I click to interact. So let's work with it. Saves us and confusing things. Let me place this autofocus up here out the way. Okay, it makes more sense to be near zoom. And let's work with get object distance. All right, so that we can analyze it, we need to create a line tracing that would shoot at a frame per second, and that would bring back the objects that it's hit. Okay, so the object that it's in contact with. So that will help us to enable the widget to display and show up so that we can then have some interaction with it. So we must tell Unreal which objects we're hitting with the line tracing. Make sense? Cool. So we already have the line tracing node here. We can use the same settings of 4 meters on line trace. I think that should be enough. And we can interact with the objects we're hitting on this hit actor. Okay? Cool. So let's think about this. What do we need to do with it? Well, with this node, we must tell the object that it has a widget. Okay? So we must let it know that there is a widget contained within the object. In this case, the object is our lampshade. Okay? So we need to tell the character that you're pointing at a lampshade and there's a widget within. Okay? So we need to connect these blueprints. I need to connect the character blueprints to this lampshade blueprint. And we'll create a function inside this blueprint that will be told when the character points towards it. Okay? Hope that makes sense. That's basically what we'll do now. So we're talking about blueprint connections in essence, and we've seen them before. We'll use one that we've used for a lot of our interactions, which is the blueprint interface, and we'll create one just for this. Okay, so we've already got one actually, haven't we, in our project, the one that we use for interaction, but this one is for when we shoot. So when I click the object, it will warn us, but I don't want it to work like that when I click. I want it to work when I mouse over something that the line tracing hits it. So let's create a new interface, one that's going to work with this lampshade. Okay, so I'll create an interface I need to go on the blueprints interface, and let's name it. We'll call it BP underscore widgets interface. Okay, nice. So there's our interface. Let's open it up. Okay, cool. And I'll name my function. I'll name this widget interaction, just so we can differentiate between the other interface. Widget interaction. Okay, so this will be our function. So we already know how to do it. We've done it before, and we just need to enable it in the character. So what I want to do is to be effectively, I want to be warned when I hit the objects. But which object? Now, clearly, it doesn't matter. I want it to be all the objects, because it will send a message to all objects, but only the objects that have the blueprint interface added to them are the ones that are going to respond. Okay, so it's going to shoot everyone, but it'll only get a reply from those who have the interface installed. Okay, almost like those who are on the same Wi-Fi internet connection, that sort of an analogy. So I'll get the hit actor and I'll get the blueprint. We called widget interaction, didn't we? There we go. We used the one with message. Remember, we did this in our previous class. It's going to send the message, the icon of the envelope. Okay, so the actors that have this interface are the ones that can respond or reply to the message. Okay, so it's sending this to everyone, but only the ones that it's addressed to, so to speak, will reply. Cool. Okay, so I've got that all added in. So now I have to do the same with the blueprint, right? So let's go to the event graph and let's create it. Okay, so let's think, what do I need to do at this point? Well, the first thing I need to do is install the interface. Okay, so I have the one for the character and I'll install the other one too, BP widget interact, right? Nice. So I've installed it. Okay, that's good. So I can get the event. Widget interaction event is the one we want. It's always the one that's starting the event. Nice. Okay, so cool. So when the character mouses over, it will hit the line tracing, and at every frame per second, it's shooting out, and it's shooting to every object, and it hits the same. It hits the same message will be sent. However, the only ones that will reply are the ones who have the interface, as we said, right? So I have the interface, and now I know that I'm going to get a response from this. Okay, but what will I get in return? That's the thing. What do I want to do now? Well, I want the icon to appear. I want my widget to show up, right? So by default, as we push play, it's showing already. So that's what I explained. We don't have to create it like a menu, because it's a component of the blueprint. Okay, so it's slightly different. So now so that it's showing, but it's not. That's not exactly what I want, is it? What I want is that when I push play, it's hidden. Otherwise, it won't make sense. So we need to tell it not to appear as we start the game. So I'll create an event begin play, and I'll add my widget light here. And there's a node called set visibility, and it's already created, but I don't want it to be shown at the start. Okay, so if I destroy it, it would it'll be bad, right? I just want it to be hidden. Okay, so I don't want it to appear. So in this node, I can choose new visibility for when it's visible. Okay, and also I can choose this for when it's invisible. So I'll comment on this called set widget visibility. Okay, so when I push play, it shouldn't appear from the outset. Let's push play and test that. Okay, see? We can't see it anymore. Nice. So let me set it to appear so that we can see it. Okay, see that? So now it shows, okay? So this is what that node does. It's hidden now. So I want it to be hidden, and when it interacts, the event will run and it will appear. Okay, so I'll add the widget light set visibility. And I'll set this to appear, right? So let's test this. Compile, save. And yeah, cool. Let's test it now. So it's not showing now, but when I mouse over it, now it shows up. Pretty cool, right? Nice. Okay, but there's one more thing. It doesn't go away now, right? We've only put that functionality so far to, to mouse over it and appear. So, because I have to tell it now when I unhover, that's the detail that we need to add. Okay, so we had to work out how to add that functionality to understand when we're not pointing at it anymore and when to be invisible. So let's think about how we can do that. Let's start with this. Okay, so how do we tell it we don't want it to show up? We're not touching it. We need to be very specific about this. We can't tell it to not apply to everyone. Okay, so if I'm in this position and I'm pointing at something that's 4 meters away, if I move the mouse, I'm going to touch the door, aren't I? Now it won't be touching the lampstand, but it will touch the door. So it will be touching something. But we decided beforehand to work in this way, didn't we? We considered it to be more simple if we just decide, to work with connections. So the blueprint interface links 2 blueprints that have this interface, right? So they can respond. So what if there's no interface? How does it connect to something? Well, there is one called event dispatches, which sends a message to everyone. And it doesn't matter if the blueprint is installed or not installed. Okay, it just sends a message to everyone. So we need to create this. And if I click the plus sign, I'll create a new event, dispatcher, and you can see it sends a message to everyone, right? And I'll name it is not hitting. And it could be any name, but that's the name I'll use. So I'll compile and save. And basically, we don't need to do anything. It's sending a message to everyone at this point. All right. So what do I need to do now? Well, from this point, we need to tell Unreal when it's not touching anything. So what is the easiest way to not be touching an object in the scene? For example, if I move the mouse, it's not touching this anymore, but it's touching this, right? But this one doesn't have the blueprint interface on it. So it's not touching this one. And so for, so it's touching this, not touching that. That's the principle that we're trying to work with, okay? So I'll tell Unreal to send a dispatcher type message, a dispatcher event, specifically for when it's not touching an object in the scene or not touching something that has this type of interface installed to it. If I touch an object that doesn't have this interface, then a dispatcher message will be sent, and this is what we'll set up. So let's start. First things first, there's another node that is a function that will give us a warning. So it'll warn us if it's not touching or if it is touching, and it's called does implement interface. So there we go. So if there's an implemented interface, simple as that, that's how it works. When we can choose which one we want, okay, which is the widget interaction. So I'll select BP widget interact. So it will check if the object is being hit, and if the object being hit has an implemented interface, it will, respond. Okay. So that's exactly how we'll set that up. So you learned a new node there. Cool. So it will reply with a yes or a no. And if it's true or false, it can use a branch as well because it's conditional, a Boolean, right? And I'll alternate between true and false events. So I'll turn this off and add a branch. There we go. So we've got a branch in there, our conditional node. Cool. So it will do this part for the autofocus function at first, and it will recognize the actor, get the actor that's been hit at this point. And then here it will check if there is an interface, and respond with a yes or a no. So I can link these. Okay. And here I have a branch. From here it stopped in this fork position. So I have a true or false conditions now. Which way is it going to go? Well, when it's true, it's touching the object with an interface. So when it's true, I can tell it to execute this function, right? Now, it wouldn't be necessary, but I need to link something to true. Okay, so I'll say it will execute that function. Let me just add this little detour here, keep it tidy. So when it's true, it will send this message of being true, okay? But how about false? Well, when it's false, it will do the event dispatcher. That's what we need it to do. So I'll create an event dispatcher. And if I type the name of the event, it'll be shown here. And I'll use this one, call is not hit. Call and the name of the event, okay? So it's a little different. There is this little envelope too, but it's slightly different. This will be used as a bind, okay? And we've seen this bind sort of terminology before, haven't we? But let's focus on the practical part. So this is it. It will recognize the object, check for the interface, whether it's installed or not. It will bring back the true or the false values. And if it's true, it will send a message from Interact. If it's false, it will send this other message, okay? Cool. So that's it for now for our character. Now we have to implement the same or similar on the blueprint, okay? So we have the event for when it's being hit. And how is it supposed to respond? Well, when it receives the widget interaction, which is this message here, when it's true, when it's touching something, it will send a message. This message is received and this will be executed. Now I need to receive a message from call is not hit. And I need to identify this message, right? All right. So the first thing I need to do is to connect to my first person. So this is an event that's happening without an interface. So I don't have an interface applied to call is not hit. It has an event dispatcher. So I need to connect to the first person blueprint to be able to access this event dispatcher. Okay. So in my event begin play, I will do the connection here. How do I do that? I'll come to get player character and I can connect it. And I'll do a cast to. Do you remember this? We mentioned this before, didn't we? Okay, so now it's time to use it. Okay, so I want to connect to the character. And all of these are found in the scene. Some are default, but I'll use the ArcViz character, which is our character, right? And I'll link these. And now I'm connected to the character. And now I'll generate a reference. My reference is here. I'll generate a variable here that I'll name as well. So let's name that my first person ref. Cool. So now I'm connected and create the variable for it. I'll comment get first person reference. Okay. And I'm just getting its reference here, right? Great. So we're getting there. We're almost there. So now I'll add the reference I have here to access things that are in the first person blueprint. And what I want to access is the event dispatcher specifically, which is called is not hitting. Okay, so now we got those same parameters from the other blueprint, right? I hope you're getting this and following along. But which one will I use? Well, I'll use the one named bind. Okay, it's creating an event with the message that was sent out. The message was sent and it's creating an event from this message that is received. So we'll use it here, right? Cool, great. So I'll relocate this, just move it over here because I want to get something here as well. Nice. And you can see this is a node with a flow control here, right? Gives us a little clue what we can do here. So when it will build this event, I need to tell it when. So I want it to do it when the message is received. If I set it for after, it won't make sense because it's just for when we receive it. So I want it to happen in the beginning of the game, always in the beginning of the game, because my event is already built and it will execute it when it has to, right? So I'll create a sequence to organize the flow of these things. Okay, and I'll bring this down here and I'll connect it in the beginning of the game. Just organize these a bit. Cool. And you can see in this node that I'm building an event, right? Cool. But which event am I building? Well, it's an event that's in here. So I need to create an event. So I'll create a custom event. I'll name it hide widget. Okay, hide widget. Okay. So all event nodes have this. It's used with this type of node. So I'll link these two. Let's think again. Let's go back here so we don't get too lost. So I've created a dispatcher event which sends events to everyone. Okay, and when will it send this event to our flow? It will send this message. It will send this message when I'm not touching anything. Okay, with the widget interaction interface, right? So when you think about our workflow, it's all about when it's not touching our widget or when it is touching something. Okay, so it means that there's no interface if it's not touching anything anymore. So the message has been sent in this specific blueprint. We're all good. So I've connected the first person to build an event from my event dispatcher. I've connected that, okay. And then it's going to build an event. Which event? It will build an event that I choose. And I've called it hide widget. Perfect. Everything looks great. We've built and we've ran the events. Nice. So we do all of this so I can enable this node and tell it I want it to be hidden. Okay, so let's link these. So when it received the message, it builds the event and executes it at the same time. And if it stops showing and these conditions are fine, we have two events here. Okay, so for Unreal, there are two different things. I've grouped them because we're using the same variable here. Cool. So let's test this and see if it makes sense. Let's push play. Okay, cool. So our blueprint started, but it's deactivated. I'll approach the lampshade and now it's shown. I'm not touching it anymore. Now it's gone. Shown, hidden. Okay, now there's a little delay in here because we've added the delay to it as well. Do you remember where we added that? Back here, a delay of 0.25. Okay, part of our line tracing. So if I remove this delay, it'll be a bit more precise, but it's silly, isn't it, really? We don't need to have so much precision unless you need it for some reason. I can't imagine why, but you know, that's what the delay is for. Okay, so you can see it takes a while because it's just trying to match up the line tracing. Okay, cool. Nice. So this is really good. It's quite a challenging blueprint, I'm sure you'll agree, but it's a really useful one. And it's awesome when it's working, isn't it? So to recap, for all the blueprints we have, in the scene, that you can do the same process. Now, it's pretty simple once you know it, once you follow the same workflow. We just need to copy and replicate it to others, okay? So that's basically what you need to do, and, make your icons as well. Connect to dispatcher as we did, and make sure you keep commenting on things. We'll comment this as well so you understand what this is doing. And let's call this one show or hide widget. Okay, cool. So we also showed you a new type of blueprint connection there as well, didn't we? Always increasing and enhancing our knowledge. Now we understand the event dispatcher. So you can see we're using all the resources available. We're using the line tracing with the blueprint interface and the event dispatcher. And we're using all the things we've learned so far. Okay, you're building on your knowledge and understanding now. So here we have set visibility as well. We've used the concept of reference that we learned in CAST 2. And this is really what we wanted in our course. We wanted to add new challenges that help us to evolve in these concepts that we're learning along the way. And this class has done exactly what we wanted it to achieve. Make things look beautiful, but also to show you how and why we do certain things and how we achieve the results. So now I want to create an animation. Okay, so it's not just appearing, so it's a little bit smoother. We'll do that in the next class. Okay, see you then.